What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. I'm here with my main man, Adam August, owner of Blueprint Cookies, and he's going to show us the blueprint. Let's get into it.
I like what you did there, man.
To the channel, y'all. Thanks for everyone who's been subscribing, supporting, liking all the channels, all the videos that I've been putting up. Sorry about that. I am here, good friend of mine, Adam August. I think we met in 2012, 2013, around there. We were both helping operate a gym down in Fort Lauderdale, Elevate Training and Fitness.
The good old days.
The good old days,
yeah.
Yep. He's now moved on from fitness, but he's still in entrepreneurship, and he's a good friend of mine. I've learned a lot from him. I wanted to have him on the show, but I'll give him a little chance to just tell us about himself. Where'd you come from? Where'd you grow up? A little bit about your family dynamic and what you're doing now.
Cool. And you want me talking to you? Am I looking at the mic?
You can talk
or at
to
the
me.
Camera. Okay, cool.
You can talk to the mic, camera.
So thank you for the introduction.
No
I think it
worries.
was more like 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, man. I mean, a long time ago.
Yeah.
Long time ago. It's been cool to see how we've both grown and developed, and we've both come a long way. So, and I appreciate you having me on the show. I've definitely already sent it to a few people. One person in my company who needs some of the guidance that you've been sharing. So I appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, there's not too much exciting stuff about me. I mean, my name's Adam August, born and raised in San Francisco.
Okay.
Went to University of Colorado, so go Buffs. Hopefully, Coach Prime is going to put us back on the map this year.
I didn't know you went there.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
I mean, I attended school there. I don't know how much classes I actually went to, but I did go there. Then after college, my dream was to work in the NFL. Originally as a general manager, did an internship with the Kansas City Chiefs, realized really quickly that the route to become a general manager in the NFL was not for me. Being a scout on the road, not doing that. So just, 21 years old. Oh, okay. Maybe CEO one day would be great. To be the CEO of the 49ers.
Okay.
So applied all 32 teams, used my network, just try to get in anywhere. Ended up landing a job with the Miami Dolphins in ticket sales. So that's what originally brought me out here. Did that for about a year. Wasn't a good fit. Got fired. Around that time is when I met Nick and Mike Rafferty from Elevate.
Yep.
That's where I would come to meet you.
Yep.
And just was really enamored with what they were doing. Young guys, I think at that time we're 22, 23 years old. Entrepreneurs building a business. I thought it was super cool. I thought I had just a different mindset about like skills that I could bring to them from an operations perspective.
Yep.
So just showed up and kind of wouldn't leave Mike alone until he eventually hired me, which gave me a job. Exactly. So that was incredible to be a part of. And I look back on who was involved in that and now what we've become. And we really had an all-star team.
We did.
I think we were all too early in our careers to realize that because, everyone has to go through their own growth and learning about themselves. But you fast forward now and see where we are. It's all pretty amazing. But yeah, I did that. Was incredible experience. Ended up leaving that, I got a really unique opportunity to run a bobby pin manufacturing company in Appleton, Wisconsin. So I picked up and moved from Florida to Wisconsin, did that for a year.
Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Bobby pins, you don't have too much hair, but the things that women put in their hair. But no, I mean, look, this guy was crazy enough to let a 25-year-old try to turn a business around because it was a family business. And he basically presented me the opportunity of, Adam, if you think this is something you want to do and, try to turn around, the worst that happens is it doesn't work and I close the business anyways. Yeah. Right. So I was like, okay, let's go. I got nothing to lose. I'm willing to kind of bet on myself and put myself in unique opportunities to get experience. And I figured, if this guy's crazy enough to let me do it, like, let's try it out.
Okay.
And, it was a great hands-on learning about culture, right? Because here's a 25-year-old from Florida who, from a culture and like people understanding perspective, there's nothing in common with the people that I'm now set to lead, who are Midwest, from Wisconsin. A lot of them were 50, 60 years old, had been working at this company for 25 years. And like, they're looking at me to try to turn things around. So how do you go about doing that? It was a great lesson on, collaboration, and how do you go about gaining the trust and, showing people, not telling people that you have their back and we're in this together.
Yeah.
So it was a great learning opportunity to do that. Did some
You feel
incredible...
like you had some imposter syndrome starting out?
Dude, I was wearing a suit, like to a this was a manufacturing warehouse in Appleton, Wisconsin. Like, I absolutely had all the imposter syndrome, right? Like, I was so out of place. But as I've learned and realized later on my career, and I can now say this looking back, but I didn't realize at the time, I'm really good at just figuring shit out.
There you go.
Right. Okay. I think ultimately that is, you peel back all the different skills an entrepreneur has. The foundation is you have a self-belief that through everything you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Whether it's you yourself figuring it out or identifying people or resources or whatever that will help you do that, but ultimately you figure it out. And that was one of the first examples as I look back on my career in me figuring it out, having no idea what I'm doing from a leadership, from manufacturing, from how to save a business, how to operate a business. I knew nothing. Yeah. But I got in there and I, learned from the team on what did good look like, right? Because there was a time where this company was great, right? It's been around for 100 years, right? And a lot of these people have been there for a long time. So they were able to give me some insight on what good looked like and where things went wrong. And, got in there, got my hands dirty and learned. Yeah. But did that for about a year, and that took, it ran its course. And then moved back to San Francisco, had to kind of break into tech, worked for 2 different tech companies in sales, very early stage startups, again, in situations where I kind of had to figure it out. There was no blueprint, so to speak, on what success looked like. Yeah.
Nice play on words.
Yeah, I'm sure that we'll play on that one a few times. And then I got to a point, the second company I was with kind of let me go. It just wasn't a good fit. They needed it was a really hard product to sell, for one. It was behavioral intelligence, and it was very early stage. They didn't really have a full product to sell, and they needed someone with way more experience and way more connections than I had. So it just wasn't a good fit, but everything happens for a reason. Had breakfast with the CEO a few days after he let me go. Again, we had a good relationship. I definitely would say he was a mentor of mine during that time. Yeah. And he said something along the lines of, Adam, if you have an idea of what you want to do, go do that. And this part I can't really explain, but for whatever reason, I attached that advice to this running joke that I've had for a while about opening up a cookie company. Yep. I had, it was on my Bumble that when I retire, I want to open up a cookie company. It was something I would joke about Nick, 5 years prior when I was at Elevate. So for whatever reason, he said that. I attached that advice to that thought. I go on Google, see that Insomnia sold for $500 million at, had 100 locations, or, and I might be fudging the numbers a little bit, but for me, it was the checkbox that this is a business that I could scale and I could exit. I'll figure out how to get there. Someone else has already done it. I'm not the smartest person in the world, but it's cookies. How hard could it be? Yeah. And that was kind of what set me on the journey of, where we kind of are today. Gotcha. Okay. Because I was going to ask you what the birth of Blueprint was. So like, take me back, I guess, to the day before. Was it just like an epiphany where it's like, hey, I'm starting an LLC? Or was it like, hey, I got to get some proof of concept? Like, what was it? What started you on the path that says, hey, I'm opening this? So I will always go back to, it's the foundation of that self-belief, and you'll figure it out. Yep. Right. So, and I'm not the most detailed, I'm not the most build a business plan. Like that's just not how I roll. If that's how I rolled, then I don't think we'd even be here.
Be there.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was kind of once I made the decision to myself and the commitment to myself that I was going to do this. I mean, my parents kind of laughed at me, right? They like flat out. They also, wrote me a check for $25,000 saying, Adam, we believe in you. We love you. We're here to support you. But, we're also laughing at you at the same time because we don't really think you know what you're doing. But so like, that's, I'm very thankful for the support that I have from my parents.
Do you think that was, kind of a way to motivate you though?
I don't know if consciously, but my dad specifically has always been very hard on me.
Yeah. Okay.
And always pushing me. And now, I mean, I do know that has created a chip on my shoulder and motivation of like, I want to prove him wrong.
Absolutely.
I don't know if he's consciously doing that for that outcome, but that has been the outcome.
Absolutely.
So once I kind of decided that I was going to do that, validated by insomnia, kind of the next step was I texted Nick and said, hey dude, I know we joked about this 5 years ago when we were high on the couch eating cookies, but I'm going to do this. I want you to be my business partner. Like, are you in? And to his credit, without skipping a beat, he said he's in. And no business plan, no nothing. It was literally the next day. I felt, okay, I think and I'm still living in San Francisco. He's in Florida.
Yeah.
I think the best place to start is like, let's try to find a space, I think. Again, like I had no idea.
No idea. Yeah.
But I'm calling spaces. He's going to meet with landlords. And that started, taking steps forward.
Yeah.
And now the advice that I give anyone that is interested in starting a business is start to take those steps forward. Mm-hmm. You can't come up with the whole plan and have every answer in the very beginning because you have no information.
Yeah.
The only way to start to develop the plan is by taking steps forward and getting more information, right? An analogy that I've come up with, I don't know if it's the best, but it's like going down a dark alley, right? You have a flashlight, you're shining the flashlight, you can only see 10 feet in front of you. Mm-hmm. Well, if you stay in the same space, you're only going to see 10 feet in front of you, right? But if you take one step forward, now you can see 11 feet in front of you. You take another step forward, you can now see 12 feet in front of you. And maybe if you slowly start to take those steps, you see that there's an alley down the right hand, on your right that you couldn't see when you were, in the beginning. But now that you took a few steps, you could see, and now that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Right. So, the reason why I share that analogy is because oftentimes people think of starting a business as like you're jumping all in.
Yeah.
I've never viewed it like that. I view it as taking these small steps forward, gaining more information, making educated decisions, and just slowly walking forward. And eventually you get to where it is you want to go.
Yeah. One of the financial coaching classes I took, the lady said, messy action, right?
Yes.
Just like not knowing what it is, but just doing an action, right? So whatever that is, taking out the LC, coming up with the name, getting some equipment. The whole YouTube channel and idea, right? This is all new to me, right? But it was, buy a camera. All right, get a microphone. Okay, upgrade your stuff. Just get better at it. Get better at editing. Do
a podcast. Just do it. It doesn't need to be all structured and perfect and
press record. And so no, that's the best advice that I think I've learned is just messy action. Because if you just wait for everything to be perfect, it's never going to be. Right? You're going to have your pitfalls, but that's the whole beauty of, starting something is you're going to learn through all the things that you do. So, but yeah. Okay. So what is one of the biggest lessons, I guess, that you learned since you started the business? Like, what would you have done differently? Maybe.
I honestly don't know if I would do anything differently.
Okay.
I think that I'm very proud of the journey that we've been on. I'm extremely proud of the people that I've gotten on the bus. And I think as CEO of the company, ultimately that should be my number one job and responsibility is building the team. Yeah. Because ultimately you have to have a great team to win a championship. Right? Look, I love sports, so you often use that as examples. Championship winning teams are true teams, right? Where everyone understands what their role is, right? Everyone has a role, everyone understands what their role is, and everyone plays their role to the best of their ability. Yeah. And believing in the person next to them that they're also doing the same, right? So I feel like that's been my number one focus, is really building the team.
Yeah.
And we have an incredible team. And I think that because of that, there really isn't anything I'd change. I mean, of course, I think that this is something we all humans experience, of like wanting to be further along, or wanting to be better, or wanting to, have more subscribers, wanting to have more money, have more locations, right? Like, I think that would be nice if, we, instead of being at 3 locations, we would be at 20 locations at this point, right? And you see what Crumble's done and how fast they've grown, and you can't help but kind of compare yourself to that. But I think then it's important to kind of refocus, right? And like turn that noise off in your brain, which is normal, right? We always are going to experience it. I think the difference is, do you let that impact you, or can you turn that off? Right. And then get refocused. And again, get refocused on what we can control. So, I mean, that's a long way of answering your question of, there isn't really much I would change. I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. I'm definitely a different leader today than I was 3 years ago. And I believe that I need to be a different leader in 3 years from now than I am today, right? In order for the company to grow, I have to continue to grow.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? I cannot be the same person and then expect the business to grow. How does that work, right? So
this is a different person that I've met, because you used to be a little bit of a hothead, huh?
I still am. Absolutely. Still am. Ask Mike, ask Paloma, ask anyone on our team. I definitely is still a hothead, but I have learned to control that better than I did, when we first met.
We're always working.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have an uncanny, you're very hard on yourself, and you expect a lot of people, and it's just, you get frustrated about it. I mean, but you have grown to kind of self-reflect and know when you're getting into those moments where it's like, hey, I gotta chill. A little bit. So, gotcha. Okay. So you mentioned 3 locations. What's the goal, man? Like, what is, you go to sleep at night, what does, Blueprint look like for you?
So I think that to answer that question fully, like, you have to understand that there's different aspects of the goal.
Okay.
Right. So yes, there's the goal from like the business, financial, locations perspective. But I think where I would like to start off with is more about the goal on the impact that we have.
Okay.
Right. I'm sure we're going to touch on this at some point, but Blueprint, and why then, that doesn't describe cookies at all. Right. Which was very intentional when we had to go through the rebrand. We wanted to pick a name that was, representative of the company and the culture that we're building, right? Not just of the product that we're selling. And what has been very important to our business from day one, and to me personally, is the way that we treat our employees, which we call team members. And the ultimate goal of the business, and the larger we grow, the larger our platform will be to share this message, is that we want to be the blueprint for how companies invest in their employees, how they treat their employees, how they support their employees inside and outside the business. I want other businesses to look at us and adopt some of the things that we do, right? I want them to adopt at their companies. Like, that to me would be the ultimate success, right? If I one day hear from other entrepreneurs, hey, I read that you guys have you pay your team members $100 to read a book called Setting the Table, which is all about hospitality.
Okay.
Right? Which is an investment in them, because I really believe it's expanding their knowledge of the restaurant industry, their knowledge of hospitality, their knowledge of how companies should interact with their employees, because it's a big part of the book. So it's an investment in them. It's also an investment in our business, because the more aligned we are, our team members are with our philosophies as a business, the better the business is. Right? The more aligned we are, the better the business is. The more our message is shared. So I honestly don't even remember your original question.
Long-term goal.
Yeah, long-term goals. So I think that I could go on that topic forever. Like I'm very passionate about that.
Yeah.
Again, we do things like AMAs, Ask Me Anythings, where we bring in other entrepreneurs to speak to. I would love to have you do an AMA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, so we have other entrepreneurs, other thought leaders come and just answer questions from our team members.
Yeah.
Right. And it's all about just trying to share knowledge and wisdom with our team. Right. That's the investment that I'm talking about in them. We will sponsor booths. So we have a lot of our team members. We're really big on them having side businesses, side hustles. Right. And anything we could do to help them grow that, like I get excited about that.
Would you say that is the majority of CEOs and business owners?
No, absolutely not. Okay. No.
Yeah.
No.
Just figured what you thought about that.
No, definitely not. I think that there's most people I would think would say that encouraging employees to have their own businesses on the side would take away from at work. And I mean, I fundamentally disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think actually the opposite, that encouraging employees to have side businesses teaches them about accountability, right? About ownership, about what you put in is what you get out, because that's, in business, that is, if you want to start your own business, it is what you're the only person that's going to grow it, right?
Exactly.
There's nothing else.
It's up to me.
Exactly. I think it instills a sense of pride, and it gives people multiple revenue streams, right? Which is really important to build long-term financial, wealth.
Yep.
Right. You can't just rely on one revenue stream, right? We see how quickly things can change.
You can lose your job tomorrow.
Tomorrow, exactly. So yeah, I think there's so many benefits to it, and also balance, right? Like we don't have our team members. Ideally, our general managers we're asked to work in the store 30 hours. Like our other team members, somewhere between 20 and 25 hours. Wow. The idea is so that gives them the flexibility to do other things and not just be working at Blueprint, and kind of get burnt out.
It's an interesting model, man. I always tell people, managers and different business owners that I've had is like, as far as employees go, I think the biggest thing that employees just want to see is that they're appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
I think human beings, right?
Human beings.
Forget about employees.
Exactly.
Human beings just want to
feel appreciated. They just want to know that they're appreciated.
Yeah.
And I like, just, my wife, she's a manager, and it's just like the level of feedback that she gets from just being able to, take someone aside and say, hey, I know it's been a tough week, but I appreciate everything that you've done. Like how far that goes in the career. So like what you're doing, man, I like, that's very commendable. Really pushing people to, think outside the box and be bigger than themselves and be bigger than their current situation.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to do. And I think, that's why me and you get along so well.
Absolutely.
We have very like-minded personalities as far as that goes. Now I know you didn't start as Blueprint Cookies.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think a common misconception is like, someone, you've grown the cookie shop to 3 different stores. You didn't just roll out of bed and, success just knocked at your door, right? There's pitfalls along the way. So tell us about the original name was Batch Cookie, and just, tell us about, what roadblock you ran into there.
Yeah. So the original name was Batch. The reason why we went with that name in the very, very beginning was because you make cookies in small batches, right? Yep. So Batch, it made sense. And also at the time, I didn't know what the soul of the company was, because it's a startup, right? You don't know anything. Absolutely. So, now I know that name only represented the product. It didn't represent the soul of the business, like I think Blueprint does. But so that was our name. We went through all the right channels and the right steps to protect our name. And we did that successfully, right? So we went through the trademark process with attorneys. It wasn't like I did it. We were issued 2 trademarks by the USPTO, which is the governing body that oversees trademarks, for our logo and our word mark. The word mark being Batch, the cookie company, right? So we owned that, but own that very specifically. And then our logo. Then after about 6 months after getting those trademarks, I was another local business that also uses Batch contacted us and said, hey, I think we're going to have an issue with regards to our names. And, call me naive or ignorant at the time, but I thought I did everything we needed to do, right? We have protection. We're good. And that was the message that I conveyed. Next thing I know, we were served with a lawsuit for trademark infringement.
Wow.
So that was definitely like a gut punch for sure. And it took me, and we went through the process of defending ourselves. And thankfully my father's an attorney and was able to really help guide us in that and also offset a lot of the costs that we would have incurred. Otherwise we wouldn't have been able to afford to really defend ourselves.
Yeah.
But as much as as challenging as the actual process was, now that we're removed from the process, one, it was incredible education, right? I'm thankful for that education because I now have a better understanding of litigation, trademarks, right? All things that I can apply that will come up again in my business career. I'm still so early.
Certainly
right?
Will.
So, and then the cost of that education in the grand scheme of things was pretty minimal, right? And I'm really big on that. There's any type of education, there's a cost to that. Right? Whether it is you go get your 4-year degree, you go get your master's, 2-year degree, or you learn on the job, right? Or learn by doing, right? And usually learning by doing, there's mistakes that happen, but those mistakes cost money. And the goal is to try to minimize the cost of those mistakes. But so
that's the tuition of business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great, I like that. That is the tuition of business, which, maybe different conversation for a different day. I think is worth way more than the tuition of school. Yeah. But like I said, different, we'll save that for the next one.
Yes, we will.
But then also what I was able to take away from that experience was my mindset. I naturally in the beginning had the mindset of, like, screw this guy, like, why us? What, we did everything the right way. So unfair, right? Very natural to have that. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with a very close friend of mine, Jason, also a business partner of mine in another business, who he really encouraged me to try to shift my mindset and try to make this a positive. Right? How could you just play the game with me, Adam, a little bit? How could you make this a positive? Right? And just kind of getting me out of that negative mindset. And through that, right, I got to a place where we felt really comfortable once we decided that we were going to have to go up with a new name. Just because it was for the best interest of the business in the short term and the long term. The outcome of that is I think that this experience was one of the best things that's ever happened to the business. Right? And I don't think I would have that mindset if it wasn't for that conversation with Jason. And I say that now because, again, I look at the name so much more represents the soul of who we are and what we are, the ultimate goal, right, of impact, right? Not just sales and store growth, right? The ultimate goal is to have impact. Blueprint so much better represents that than Batch ever did or ever will. Batch just described the cookies. We are more than a cookie company.
There it is.
There it is, right? That's the tagline. Sometimes I have some gold, some gold that comes out of this mouth.
There you go. Well, so it's interesting you talk about the mindset piece, man, because I want to touch on that a little bit. Because I mean that's what the channel is all about.
Yes.
It's just like self-reflecting. Like you easily could have been F this guy, close up shop. I mean, hey, we had a good run. That's it. But like, tell me about, obviously in that moment, and then just even the moments where, you had gotten fired from other jobs and whatnot. What was the mindset that made it so that didn't define who you are or what your career was going to be? Like, how did you dig yourself out of that hole? And like, other than mentors, right? Like what did you do? Positive affirmations? Like, just what was it, man? If you could point to something.
I don't know if I can point to something specifically. I have a really bad memory. So like like when shit happens, I don't just tend to dwell on it. Like I move on, good things and bad things. Yep. And I wouldn't even necessarily say like I live in the moment. Like I try to live in the moment. I think we all do, right? Like try to live in the moment, but it's very hard. It takes a lot of work. But yeah, I don't think I don't get too low and I don't get too high. And as I've also gotten older and more mature and a better sense of self, my highs and lows are less than they were when I was 24, when you're knew
more
me.
Stable. Yeah.
So I think some of it is just growth, right, over time. And I think the goal is that we all experience that, right? So if, you're listening to this now and you feel like you dwell a lot on the negative, right? That just might be where you are today. But understanding that, just identifying that is great, and that over time you can work on that, and where you do that a lot less in a year from now or 2 years from now. So I think that that's really what it is. I don't think that there is, like, I'm not in the mirror saying I am great, I am powerful. Like that's not me.
Not cliche, man.
No, yeah, that's
Man, I've always admired your, like, just the mission that you have, and you want to help others. You've always been very big on that. I want to kind of touch on a story. It's back in the archives now. You were living in California. I believe you helped a homeless man out.
Yeah, Tarek.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I just you've always been big. Hell, you lent me some money when I was broke at one time, right? So, like, what
did you ever pay me back?
I did pay you
back.
Good. Don't worry, I got you.
Okay, good. I didn't even remember that, so I might as well ask.
No, man. What made? I think you let him take a shower. You got him some food. Like, what in your head was like, you know what? I want to help this person out, because you would have been completely right to maybe not have him come in your house. Like, obviously there's safety concerns, with a stranger and whatnot. Yeah. But like, what in your head was like, you know what? I want to impact change and help this person right now. Like, where do you get that from? So
I think in two parts, I think, and one of the first part I think it's selfishness in a way, right? Like, ultimately helping other people makes us feel good.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's okay to be selfish sometimes, right? Especially when that's the approach of selfishness you're taking, right? Is that you want to feel good, so helping others. I think that's good. That's okay. So I think that in that moment, I was kind of lost in life. I didn't know if I necessarily had a purpose. And I felt compelled to, start and talk to this other guy. And it wasn't like I had this whole, again, I don't plan stuff. I don't really think things through. I just kind of do shit.
Yeah.
And he's telling me how he hasn't had a shower in 3 weeks. And I'm like, how am I, sitting across from this guy? And like, I go home and shower whenever I want. Like, I just felt compelled to, I just come take a shower, dude. Like, I feel bad for you. Like that. No, none of us should have to go through that. Yeah. And then it just kind of led one thing after another. And like, it gave me purpose when I don't think I had. I was lost a little bit. But yeah, I think just, generally speaking, I get a lot of joy in helping out other people.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm incredibly fortunate. Just in my upbringing and the support that I've had from my parents, in my ability to find incredible people to surround myself with. Like, I'm fortunate about that. I'm fortunate, to live 2 minutes away from my office, which is incredible. Like, it's a beautiful office with awesome people. So I think because of all those things, like gratitude, right? I feel that and want to help other people.
No, that brings up a good point, because you said, you grew up pretty privileged.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah, that's important to.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think it contributed to where you are now? And then, what are maybe some misconceptions that someone might think of someone who grows up a privileged life?
I think it's the same thing that someone would say who grew up not from a not privileged life, who was able to get themselves out of that, right, and work towards, work to get to where they are. Is that ultimately you have no say in how you were raised, like the parents you were born, or the situation you were born, like you have no say in that.
Yeah.
Right. But you get to a certain point where you start to take accountability, right? And you can define the type of person that you want to be.
Yeah.
So I think some of it is that I felt like I've never deserved to have the fortune that I've had.
Yeah.
Like, what did I do to deserve that? There's people living in like absolutely just the most awful situations, have had to go through the most awful things.
Yep.
So I think some of it is, insecurity around like not deserving that, which, that's just my own journey, and don't feel bad for me by any means, right? We all have our own things that we have to work through.
Absolutely.
But then I think it's also just important to realize that because I have been fortunate, it's important to give back, right? And help out other people, and right, help lift up other people.
Yeah.
And I don't know, my parents did a great job of raising me, but I don't know if it was something that they really instilled in me, or if it was just something that I, kind of developed on my own as to who I want to be, right, and the impact that I want to have on this world.
So that's good. So what do you think motivates you? Because for me, I have 3 kids, man.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I have my wife, my kids. Like, I'm so motivated to give them the best life that I could dream of, right? And so, obviously, I don't think you have any kids right now.
No. I don't have any kids.
So, like, what is it that motivates you, man? Is it obviously financial reward, maybe? I don't know. Is it? Like, you could have easily got regular job.
Yeah.
Just worked.
I could definitely be making way more money than I make now. Let me tell you that. Working way less.
Yeah. That's probably one of the misconceptions.
Oh, absolutely.
That business ownership, just because you own a business doesn't mean you're just rolling.
No, yeah, that's a major misconception. Absolutely. What motivates me? It's a simple question, but it's a very complex answer. I think there's multiple things that motivate me. I love what I do. I love who I do it with. I love that I don't have to answer to anyone. Mm-hmm. I love that I have some weeks I work 100 hours. Some weeks I'm on the beach Tuesday at 11 a.m., right? Mm-hmm. Push and ignore on my phone because I don't want to talk to anyone, right? So I guess the freedom motivates me a lot.
Yeah.
The bigger the businesses become, the more impact I can have on other people, and again, bringing people up and showing them a different way of doing things, right? Being in a business that shows appreciation to its employees, right? That motivates me. The idea that one day my business partners and I will be able to call, have the private jet gassed up, and we're going skiing for the week, right? Okay. That shit absolutely motivates me. So I think there's a lot of things, and I think that as we get older, I would imagine if I asked you that question before Brian was born, your answer would be very different.
Yeah.
Right?
It probably would.
So I would imagine that as I grow and mature and enter new phases of my life, that answer will also evolve. But you're asking me at this moment today, I would say those are the things that motivate me.
Got it. Okay. What is one area of your life that you need to work
on? I can only just give you one.
If you'd like to, just crucify yourself, go ahead. But
I think it's important.
It's important to self-reflect.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have for the first time in my life, I have a girlfriend.
Okay.
Right, which has been an incredible. She's amazing. Like, I'm so thankful to have met her, and she's showing me love in ways that I've never experienced before.
Okay.
And I'm learning how to navigate that. Right. And
what's her name?
Michaela.
Yeah. He just got his brownie points for the day.
Cookie points.
Yeah, cookie points. Sorry about that.
All good. So I think that like what that's showing me is like I still have a lot of work to do in loving myself.
Okay.
And not my natural tendency is sometimes to push her away, right, and like isolate myself because that's just kind of how I've coped with things.
Yeah.
So I think that that's definitely an area in which I'm like, growing, and I need to get better in. I will always need to get better in the hot-headedness. Like that's always an area of I can improve on.
Yep.
So, but thankfully, like I think my team would tell you that I've come a long way. I was the guy, I'd be sending mad slacks out at 9 p.m. right? Like why, why are you doing that, Adam?
Yeah.
Right? Nothing's going to get solved right now. It's not making anyone feel good.
Yep.
Sleep on it, deal with it tomorrow. Right? Like
my boss used to write emails.
Yeah.
Reread the email and delete it.
Okay. That's a great,
it's just like, what is this going to do?
Yes, absolutely. So I'd say that's another area that I need to improve on and we'll continue to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those are two solid areas.
It's important, man, to self-reflect.
What about you?
Know your flaws. Man, organization is a huge thing for me. So I like whenever we're meeting or talking, you throw it on a Google Calendar.
It has to be.
I'm like, this man is organized.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but when it comes to my calendar,
you're using the tools that you need to keep yourself in check, right? And so that's one of the big areas, and honestly, to have patience with myself, right? So, compare myself to where I'm at right now. I can't, I talk to my wife sometimes, and I'm like, damn, this guy grew his YouTube channel to this much in 6 months or 12 months. And it's like, babe, focus on where you're at right now, and obviously as a highly competitive, motivated individual, you probably go through the same things.
Absolutely.
We're absolutely our worst critic.
Yes.
The first video I watched, I'm like, I hate how I sound.
Yes.
My wife's like, what are you talking about?
This is how you sound every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's like, man, just having a little bit more patience with myself.
Yes.
And just sticking to the plan, being consistent, and just following the blueprint.
Yes.
So yeah, man, that's definitely my biggest area of focus, and just steady, getting better every day. A little bit
better every day.
One step in front of the other. So,
Kobe talks a lot about that.
Yeah. It's important, man.
Yeah.
So if there was one piece of advice, someone out there, maybe they just got fired. They've had a business idea. They want to do something with their life. They want to start a business. What's one piece of advice where you're like, do this and like focus on this 100%?
It's a tough question because situation is so important in this, right?
Yeah,
where the person is in their life, like financially, like, some people can't afford to stop working and maybe focus on a business, right?
Yep.
So I think
responsibilities.
They might have kids, right? So I think it's so tough to just give advice very generally. I will say when it comes to being fired, as someone who's been fired as much as I have a very unique perspective on that.
Yeah.
I view that very similarly to, so I think an employee-employee relationship, it can be looked at kind of like just a romantic relationship, right? In the sense that very few romantic relationships last 30, 40, 50 years, right? Like very few people are with their soulmate and that lasts forever, right? That in same thing with the employee-employee, right? Sometimes the relationship makes sense for 2 years because of where you're at in your life or where the business is in the business. Like a business is a growing thing too, right? Like it has different stages. Maybe it made a lot of sense for you to be at that startup, but as the company grows up and becomes more mature and implements more systems and processes, your style of work doesn't really fit for that, right? You get fired. You're not fired because of anything to do with you. It's just maybe no longer a good fit, right? And I have that perspective on being fired again because I've been in that situation so many times where I don't think it was necessarily because I did something that was so bad that it deserved to be fired. It's just I was no longer a good fit for the company, or the company was no longer a good fit for me, and one of us had to say, hey, I think it's time we move on. Yeah. So I think that's one thing, like, just, for anyone that's been fired out there, right, is not, you don't necessarily need to look at like what you did or feel bad that happened. It probably is honestly for the best. Right.
Well, I always say, I mean, you said it earlier in the show, everything happens for a reason, man. And honestly, there's so many blessings that have come out of people getting fired.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can look at several entrepreneurs, just people in your life, they're distraught. You're not thinking about it at the time because you're going through it, right? Exactly. But when you look back through and and it's just like, man, that sometimes better opportunities present themselves.
Yes.
So I just have that mindset of like, everything happens for a reason. Man. Yes. It's just like, you just got to keep going and have that positive mindset that everything's going to work out for the best, and it will.
Yep. Absolutely. So, but I do want to answer your question about, general advice.
Yeah.
I think that if you have an idea of a direction you want to go, the best place that I always recommend people to start is having conversations with people that are doing that thing. Right. So if you're interested in starting a podcast business, best place to start is try to find someone in your network that's doing that. Take them out to lunch, have a conversation with them, ask them about it, learn about it. Right. And then observe yourself. Was that interesting to you? Like, were you really intrigued? Were you really engaged with what they were sharing? Do you want to continue your information download? Right. Do you want to go talk to someone else? Or, which is totally okay as well, maybe after the conversation, like, I don't want to do that. Like, that doesn't sound that great. Yeah. Like, and again, that's okay too. But I think that's a very low bar of exploring an interest. Right? It's just by having a conversation with someone that is doing that. So I think that's always the best place to start, is by doing that. And again, if you have 2-3 conversations with someone that's doing it and you're still interested, okay, so then now what's the next step? And don't worry about the end goal. It's just, what's the next, what would be the first step, right? And again, if it's a podcast, don't create the barrier of you need all the right equipment to do it, right? Right? If you can go out and purchase the equipment, awesome.
Great.
But don't create that as a barrier, as you need to do that first to have your first podcast. Because you could put up your freaking phone, right? And have a conversation with someone. Right? That is not the final product, but that is version 1. Yeah. Right. And I think that just putting yourself out there and willing to, again, be uncomfortable and do that, setting up the phone and just having your first episode, that can just unlock so many barriers that we create for ourselves. Like, wow, it was that easy to do our first episode, right? Like, I thought I needed to buy the mics and the camera and the, right?
No, I think we've been doing it. The world has been doing it backwards for a long period of time. For example, just like, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds, right? Yeah. Instead of, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds, it's, hey, I just want to walk 4 days out of the week.
Boom. It's the behavior. Yes.
The behavior change, which will eventually result in that end goal.
Yes. It almost has to. Yeah. Right?
So I no, fully, I'm with you on that. Man, you said something else, man. We were talking about, you said general advice, talk to somebody. I think the biggest thing that is a crutch for people is their freaking ego, right? You got to put your ego aside and talk to someone that's been doing it or doing, like, dude, I've learned a lot about financial literacy and everything like that. But if someone it's in a better situation than me or doing something I want to do, like, I'm going to sit down and say, hey, man, I don't know much about this. Tell me more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you have to forever be learning.
Yes.
Because there's somebody out there who knows more than you.
Absolutely.
Trust me. Yes. And so you're never at a point where you can't continue to learn. And if the person gives you advice and you don't think that it applies to you, great.
Yeah.
But don't be unwilling to put your ego aside and say, hey, this is not an area that I'm good at. Tell me more. Help me learn.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and be willing in those conversations. Someone uses an acronym you don't understand. Yeah. Just say, what does that mean?
Think about how many people.
Very few people do that. Exactly. Right. But it's those small things of being willing to
be vulnerable, man.
Be vulnerable. Yeah. Right. That's ultimately what it is. Vulnerable.
No, so I think that's the biggest thing, man, for people. one step in front of the other, just getting into action would be my advice. And then, just putting the ego aside. If there's something you want to do, asking that person, hey, man, do you have 5-10 minutes? Can I just, take you to coffee, whatever it may be, and just put yourself out there.
Exactly.
I mean, you got to put yourself out there because that's the only way things get done.
And then when doing that, also don't lose sight that is action, right? Like you might not necessarily tie that to your goal of starting your podcast, but they're correlated.
Yeah.
Your willingness to go reach out to someone, connect with someone that is doing this, and then go get coffee with them absolutely is a step towards opening up your podcast, right? So I think understanding that there are different ways to get to a place is cool, right? Some people, not very few people might go open up a brick and mortar location for their, the first time they're opening up a cookie company, right? Some people go the path of, well, I'm going to start baking out of my kitchen, right? And I'm going to sell at the local farmer's market, and they slowly build, and then eventually they get to a look, right? There's different ways to get there.
Yeah.
Right. And one isn't right or wrong. Right.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you sitting down. I have one more question. This is the most important one.
Okay.
Which state has better weather, California or Florida?
Which state has better weather?
Yes.
Ooh, that's tough. They're both great.
I know. Well, hell, you've been back and forth, what, 2-3 times?
2-time. Well, I'm born and raised there. Came out here. Found myself back there for 3 years and then came here. And I will not be going back to California.
Okay.
The weather's great in California. The weather's great here too.
But you got the blueprint here.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. See, the tough thing is though, you asked me that in August.
Yeah.
Right. And when we're here, I'm going to tell you out there. So
yeah. I think it out there, man, it just stays consistent.
Yeah, it does. But also you go to the beach there and the water's 40 degrees. You go to the beach here and the water's 75, 80 degrees. So
that's true.
Yeah, man. And there's, you got no state taxes here.
This is true.
Yeah, you got state taxes out there. So
this is true.
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man. This was fun.
Being on the show, man. You provided some insight, man. I love what you're doing. I'm proud of you.
Likewise.
You're doing your thing, man. 3 locations. Next time I talk to you, it might be 20. Who knows?
Oh, it will be. Yeah.
But I appreciate everything. Audience, go ahead, like and subscribe if you like the conversation. You want to hear more. And then if you ever do find yourself in the Fort Lauderdale area, where can they find you? Where are your locations? And if they want to follow you on social media, can you just drop that for
them? Blueprintcookie.com. Someone grabbed the URL, so we don't have Blueprint Cookies, so there's no S. Our Instagram handle is Blueprint Cookies. So just to confuse you a little bit, we're in Fort Lauderdale, Plantation, Boca. We will be opening up in Cooper City in the next 6 months. We'll be opening up in Miami in probably 9 months. So we got a lot of big plans. We're currently franchising, so we have a lot of our franchisees are about to be opening up their first stores, like I said, in the next 6 to 12 months. So we should be growing, pretty significantly down here over the next 12 months.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, man.
I look forward to it.
The cookies are good too. You're about to go grab some, right?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, he's gonna.
Jen's gonna kick your butt if you don't bring home some cookies.
My wife and my kids will crucify me if I don't bring home. Some
we don't
cookies.
want that.
No, man. They make an awesome cookie. I'm excited to go have some more. But go ahead, follow the channel, subscribe. I appreciate everyone who's subscribed over the past couple of weeks. I genuinely appreciate it. The goal is to 1,000 subscribers. That's the next goal on the roadmap. So any help getting there was greatly appreciated. Talk to you soon. Take care.
My man. Awesome.
Thank you, sir.